Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our discussion on the subject of discrimination. This is one of the most common causes of litigation within the British legal system, and I'd like to start the debate by referring you to your own future occupation, that of the law. I suggest to you that before we judge the conduct of others, we should look at ourselves. You may or may not be aware that the legal profession is among the most blameworthy when it comes to the question of discrimination. And to illustrate my point, I'd like to refer you to an interview given a few weeks ago by a very senior female judge, Lady Hale, to mark the 10-year anniversary of the creation of the UK Supreme Court. Lady Hale is the first female president of the Supreme Court, and she has made her feelings clear on the need for a more diverse judiciary in regard to social background, ethnicity and gender balance. Her view is that the general public, especially those who bring cases before the courts, be it for breach of contract, misrepresentation, bankruptcy, or ironically to fight discrimination, see those presiding over them as beings from another planet, as she so bluntly puts it. So why would she say this, we ask ourselves? Well, to begin with, women working in law are increasingly aware of earning less overall than men, and the so-called male, pale and stale judiciary, in my personal opinion, often seem content to allow this to continue unchallenged. Lady Hale said in a very candid interview that she has supported gender equality as consistently as she can within the constitutional limitations of her position. However, the fact remains that until 2017, she was the only woman in the 12-seat Supreme Court. At present, we have now progressed to as far as 3 women. When Lady Hale was asked how many she thought there should be, she made reference to US Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who, when asked the same question, said she thought there should be 9. If any of you are not aware, there are only 9 seats in the US Supreme Court. Lady Hale smiled at this answer, but said she herself thought that a 60-40 balance either way would be ideal. However, we are not there yet. Far from it. Lady Hale also commented on the gender pay gap as follows, and I quote, "Women are just waking up to the fact that they are not being paid as much. I have heard terrible stories about even successful women barristers being offered out by their chamber clerks at less than their male equivalents. That's an area where there's still work to do." She was also insistent that more progress was needed in advancing people from ethnic minority backgrounds, both men and women, into the higher levels of the judiciary. I agree with her, because although there is already a significant number of ethnic minority judges in tribunals, county courts and among district judges, there are very few indeed in the higher courts. The question for you, as young future lawyers, is what to do about this. Are you really going to fight discrimination cases on behalf of your clients, knowing that your own profession is perhaps as guilty, if not more so, than the employer you're suing? And what about social class? Lady Hale said, rather tactfully, that she hoped the judiciary would attract more people who have had less privileged lives. However, she does not approve of positive discrimination, mainly, she says, because no one wants to feel they have got the job in any way other than on their own merits. I have to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, is she right on this subject? And what about age discrimination? There are 2 ways of looking at this. Maybe it is discriminatory to force judges to retire at the age of 70, as is currently the case. But, as Lady Hale says, and again I quote, "The longer the old white men stay on, the fewer posts there are for the younger, more diverse judges." I will now open the debate for your contributions, which I look forward to hearing. Remember, you may be pleading your case before a senior judge one day, so choose your words carefully. And may I add, be careful of what you have to say about discrimination. If I may borrow a very famous quote from the Bible, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone."